we're going to have to get you to come out of your true spirit as a 26er and as a Canadian. You're going to have to go negative, because you're going to have to tell me somebody that you're completely avoiding. And then, and you've touched on some of them already, but I got a feeling that your list is deep. This is the time of the year when everyone starts to think about who is that sleeper, who isn't being talked about. So somebody that you don't want any part of, and somebody that is a crafty sleeper for you.
Okay. Easy to do, and it's not even being that hard. I'm just going to say I would not pay the price that he's going at, but I'm completely off Cam Akers. I think that him going as between RB4 and 6, I think probably now, is way too risky. He looked great at the end of last year, but I still think that Henderson was banged up, still lingering from his earlier injury. And I'm not convinced that Akers is the bell cow that everyone is drafting him at.
Impressive. A first-round bust, Balky. We haven't had a first-round bust come out of this question all season. Now, that's impressive. What about
it's good stuff.
And then for me, I had 2 sleepers. Besides, you guys were talking a lot about my back end of my Genesis draft here, but and I think you talked about him during the draft, Farrell. Rashad Perryman. I think that Detroit's going to be playing from behind a lot. They're going to be lots of garbage time. If he can stay healthy, I think he'll be a great collector of garbage points in Detroit. And then I thought Farrell was going to talk about my other guy earlier when he went to Dokes. The other guy I'm grabbing in the last round of all my drafts is Ahmed from Miami. I think he showed some good burst and some good play last year when Gaskin was injured. I'm not convinced that they've thrown in the towel on him yet.
What more do you know about that player? We're talking about the first name is Salvan.
Yeah, Salvan Ahmed, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah, that's the player from Washington, right? University of Washington.
That's correct.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good player. That's a good player. Yeah.
Farrell just knows by whatever they did in high school and college. That's how he references all these guys going forward, which I totally get. It makes sense. Brad, what a treat talking to you tonight. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's not often we get the Genesis champ on these airwaves. It's not often we get a back-to-back Genesis champ on these airwaves, and it's not often, it's never happened, where we got a back-to-back Genesis champ the week after he may have just drafted the three-peat team. So very excited to talk to you tonight. We got gleaned a lot of insight from you. Thank you so much for carving out a little time on a Thursday. We will all follow you on Twitter at Casmo11FF. And don't be a stranger. We'll talk to you again real soon. Good luck in Genesis and the 26ers 2.0 in all your leagues this year, man.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really enjoyed it tonight. It was great.
Kaz of the North, ladies and gentlemen. Good stuff from him tonight. Always appreciate when we get one of our friends to the North coming on, Farrell, and much like the Canadian football players themselves, like Chuba Hubbard, he didn't disappoint. And I think, sometimes I feel like people. Here's the thing with the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I think initially when we started, the Dizzle and I were talking about bringing these guests on. And I said, we're going to learn so much from these guests. We're going to learn all these things we never thought of before. And we have learned some revolutionary things, not always, the most financially and fiscally rewarding things when you talk about drafting in high stakes fantasy football, but definitely some new terms, new tactics. But then we get a guest on like Brad that I don't necessarily think they're out to reinvent the wheel, right? They're just out to win leagues. And sometimes it's a good reminder of like sticking to your guns, going with your gut, getting your guys, having confidence in your process and how you do it. And look what he's done. Won Genesis the last 2 years, and he won the 26ers Dynasty League this past year too. So always good to talk to players like that can reinforce our beliefs or shed some light on some things that maybe we've ignored.
Yeah, I mentioned it's great validation. And, in Waller's case, that's a perfect example. We led with that. That question about the Raider tight end. Now, he said, if I can get that repeat performance, I'll take it. So he's comfortable with that. He understands that. I'm going to tell him that, that there's room for more. And he alluded to that. But there were 6 or less targets for Waller in 4 games last year. Now, he did have double-digit targets in 7 games. And that glorious game with the Jets where he was targeted 17 times, caught 13 for 200 yards, that was fascinating. The announcers just finally, there's Waller again with a 15-yard reception on first down. He just became old hat and expected in the game. But, I see potential room for statistical improvement for Waller again. And this is the first person we've had on the show and the first person that I've talked to that's mentioned that excellent depth in the Miami backfield. And I'm not sure, despite the play from Ahmed last year and the great college play from Jared Dokes, I'm not so sure we can find a lot of fantasy players that can tell you who those two are. And Kaz has a great understanding of what's going on in that backfield.
Farrell, far be it from me to create even more controversy between the Genesis and Revelations drafts. Not controversy, but maybe bad blood. But, the unofficial mascot of this show and the official mascot of the Revelations draft, our good buddy Ron Meyer, at @2Packer on Twitter, has said for years that Revelation sets the ADP. Now, I don't want to, just go throwing everything into oblivion here. But ever since Darren Waller was made that final pick of the first round to make him a third tight end going in the first round, according to Football Guys Players Championship data, he has nudged ahead of George Kittle to be the second tight end being drafted in FPC leagues right now. Now, did Kaz of the North and the Genesis drafters have anything to do with that? Perhaps. But who are we to tell? We're just reporting the facts here on the show, and these are the facts as they were faithfully submitted by Douglas C. Niedermeyer here this 13th day of May, 2021. All right, moving on to a couple of emails here tonight. Now, Farrell, this is something that has eaten up a lot of my time in doing my sports talk show in Northeast Wisconsin here in weekday afternoons. Aaron Rodgers, we have an email about him. And it's from Howie in Columbia, South Carolina. So this is clearly, as we've seen from national media, this is affecting everybody nationwide. How are you two luminaries handicapping the Aaron Rodgers situation? Packers, someone else, or retirement? Thanks. That is Howie in Columbia, South Carolina. Farrell, I think we've broached this, but we haven't really gone deep into it at all. Do you have any feelings on how you would treat your drafts in regards to Aaron Rodgers right now?
Well, he asked us to handicap it, right?
Yes.
1 to 5, Rodgers returns to the Packers. 8 to 1 that he plays for another team, and 80 to 1 that he retires. So I think I'd agree with all those. And Farrell, the only thing I would, and I don't even know if I disagree on it with you, I might push that 8 to 1 to more like 15 or 16 to 1. I'm pretty confident. Well, the only reason that I would give it those odds is the team that's in position to get him, the Denver Broncos, have such assets to trade for him.
And cap space.
Yes. And so it's a fit. And the general manager, Peyton, is very familiar. Well, who isn't familiar with Rodgers? But being at the Vikings for all these years, he's been in a unique position to understand who Rodgers is. He's a California Bear guy. A lot of same backgrounds. This team is run by a Hall of Fame quarterback. There's a lot of reasons to think this might work. But I think what fantasy players are concerned about is Rodgers not playing. And I'd say that's the longest shot that you could imagine. And, the competitive aspect of this player, if you read him on the field when things don't go right or he thinks he hasn't been given the opportunity to win or make things right, is disgusted. And then the other thing is that he loves the teammates. You can see how they're all talking about him. And they wouldn't be talking about him this way if that love back and forth wasn't mutual. So this guy won't survive outside the locker room. And that's the part of football that we don't see, but is of the most important to football and the family that he is in. So that's what's going to bring him back, even with the general manager there in Green Bay and what happened with some of the coaching decisions last year. But yeah, it's going to be a wonderful thing to watch.
I don't want to throw any pundits or analysts or reporters under the bus here, even though I have publicly on airwaves up here in Wisconsin. No, I don't want to. That's not my style, and I shouldn't be trashing people.
I want you to.
But I'm gonna say this, Farrell. I'm gonna say this. John Kuhn was on NFL Network again yesterday. This is the second time I think he's been on there in the last week. Mm-hmm. James Jones, obviously on NFL Network. These are guys that are actually talking to Aaron Rodgers. These are guys that have texted, that they've called, and we're getting very positive vibes about the situation being fixable and that he comes back to Green Bay. Now they've stopped short of saying, "Oh, he's for sure coming back," which how can anybody know what Aaron Rodgers believes or thinks right now except for him, right? He's the only guy who knows what he's thinking. But I tend to put a lot more weight into those comments than anonymous sources or reporters who weren't talking to Rodgers or any, you know what I mean? I just think that, and I put my money where my mouth is. Last night, Kentucky run the daylight draft. I took Aaron Rodgers at the 10:04. I felt great about it. In fact, I was hoping he would get to me. I didn't even know if he was going to get to me, but I'm very thrilled to get him there. I was very happy with that. I think he's going to be back with Green Bay. I don't think he has the season in 2021 that he did in 2020, but I bet it's pretty close, and I'm excited to get him in the 10th round. Moving on to Al's email from Austin, Texas. Now that the Eagles added Kerryon Johnson through waivers after drafting Kenneth Gainwell, does that make Miles Sanders someone to avoid in FFPC drafts this season? That is Al in Austin, Texas. Al, we thank you so much. I can tell you right now, in Football Guys Players Championship drafts, Farrell, Miles Sanders has tumbled a little bit. We saw him go as high as the 101 in some Football Guys drafts last year. He was consistently going in the mid to latter part of the first round. This year, running back 18 at the 305. Considering the Eagles drafted a pass catcher, considering they picked Kerryon Johnson up off waivers, are you worried about a potential timeshare or maybe Miles Sanders not being on the field on third down for Philly this year?
I can't imagine it. I think Miles Sanders gets plenty of play. These guys are being picked up for a reason, and Kerryon Johnson's got some skills. This is a second-round draft pick at the running back, if I'm not mistaken, and teams don't pay that draft capital for running backs that can't help. And he got into the situation, which is the Detroit Lions. So you expect if he gets a landing space, he's going to start a new career and be very good. Miles Sanders, he's going to have enough to take advantage of it and be a fantasy player that will give a return in the middle of the third round. And think about Philadelphia's team last year and all the things that they had to do to put together an offensive attack, both at the running back and the receiver position. They feel that they've got to get more talent on the team. Boston Scott, the giant killer, is still there, but he's an undersized third down player. They need depth at the position. Miles Sanders is their go-to guy. Miles Sanders in the middle of the third round is an excellent pick. I chose him today.
I'm looking at one final email here before we call it a show, and that is Fred in Pomona, California. Fred writes in, "Hello, Balky and Farrell." Fred's emailed us before. He's a long-time listener. "Hello, Balky and Farrell. Who is the guy to draft in the Jets' backfield this season? And none is indeed an acceptable answer. Great work on the live draft coverage last week." That is Fred in Pomona, California. Fred, thank you for listening. Thank you for emailing, obviously. So when we get into the Jets' backfield, Farrell, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wacky. There's a lot of players there. You have the rookie in Michael Carter. You have the free agent signing in Tevin Coleman. Josh Adams and Ty Johnson are also there. And don't forget about LaMichael Pirine. Is there a player there that I've named that you would be willing to put a chip on for fantasy-wise this season or is it a situation to avoid for you?
The Coast Liver